We are back, 2024, and our first live of the year. It's 12:30 in the afternoon here, and I'm Liz Jones, Managing Director at People to People UK, and your host of P2P UK Live. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, and X, so don't forget to follow us. And on today's show, we're going to take a look at the stat of the week. We'll take a look at some hot jobs in Australia, UK, and New Zealand. We're going to take a look back at a conversation between Queensland Managing Director Ben Wheeler and APAC economist at Indeed Callam Pickering to learn more about the latest labour market developments and trends that are shaping the talent landscape. And then we'll take a look at the social media poll results. But first, let's take a look at the stat of the week. This week, we're taking a look by Talent International, an article by Talent International, where they have said 42% of UK workers are worried about losing their jobs. So that is up 28% from last year. And speaking of last year, it was 56% that said they would quit a job if they felt like they didn't belong there. And that is it for the start of the week. So it's time to take a look at some hot jobs in the UK, and we are looking for a project manager in London, southeast London to be precise, paying £45,000 to £52,000. Responsibilities will include ensuring latest information, drawing revisions, status of delivery of long lead items and client supplied kitchen equipment. Experience needs to be within the construction industry, which is essential. General understanding of the design and construction process. This role is being looked after by Hannah Scanlon, and you can contact Hannah by contacting her on her email, hannah.scanlon@peopletopeople.co.uk. The next role we have is a paralegal position, specialising within the family law space. This is based in London and paying £20,000 to £23,000. Responsibilities will include building and maintaining a positive client relationship and liaising effectively with staff and clients. Case management, including attending client meetings and court proceedings and reviewing legal documents. We're looking for someone with 2 years experience in family law and an in-depth knowledge of legal aid processes. This role is being looked after by Alia Shipos, and you can contact Alia at peopletopeople.co.uk. It's time to look at a job now, crossing the border or crossing the ditch over to Auckland in New Zealand. We're looking for a management accountant. This looks like a temporary position, paying $45 to $50 per hour. Our responsibilities will include budgeting, forecasting, along with monthly end-year reporting and variance analysis and general stock control. We're really looking for somebody within the FMCG space, 2 to 3 years experience. This role is being looked after by Chev Neal, and you can contact Chev Neal at frogrecruitment.co.nz.
We're currently recruiting for a senior HR advisor for a local Perth university located just south of the river. This is an 18-month contract working within a team, and this position is a true generalist position which focuses on employee relations and case management. This position will also include partnering with line managers to address people and culture needs, promoting and planning people activities to create a strong culture, providing practical coaching and support, and identifying and implementing improvement measures. To be considered for this position, you'll need to demonstrate a completion of a relevant degree or extensive experience in the field, high-level interpersonal skills, demonstrated leadership and initiative, and experience within the education sector, which is just desirable. If this sounds like you, please get in touch today. You can reach out to myself on 08 6160 6206 for more information about the position.
Hi, Callum, and welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. Not a problem at all. I'm excited to go through a couple of questions, and I think the most obvious one to start off with is the latest news we have around the unemployment rate and what your take might be on that. Is this something you expected? Did the number come out as you thought?
Well, the number was a little bit of a shock for a lot of economists and people in markets. We were expecting an unemployment rate of maybe around 4%. We got a 4.1% rate. But I think the most notable part was the fact that employment really wasn't increasing at all to begin the year. And that was a bit of a surprise as well. So overall, what we're seeing is that the labour market is still quite tight by historical standards. An unemployment rate of 4.1% is very healthy, but conditions are easing. Back in September, the unemployment rate was 3.6%, so it's increased by half a percentage point since then. And there is an expectation that the unemployment rate is going to gradually increase over the course of this year as well. The latest forecast from the Reserve Bank of Australia points to an unemployment rate of around 4.3% by the end of the year and by 4.4% by the end of next year. So there is that expectation that labour market conditions are going to continue to ease going forward.
And do you think as a job seeker, and of course there could be several watching this at the moment, that's going to have a notable difference? I know that's a very broad question, but when looking for a new role, how do you think it might look and feel if we get to where we're predicted to get to for the unemployment rate?
Well, certainly from a job seeker perspective, you love a tight labour market. You love it when it's difficult for businesses to find talent because it gives you a little bit more bargaining power in terms of wages or benefits or conditions or where you work, whether it be from home or in the office, so things like that. So the fact that the unemployment rate is increasing is obviously not a great sign for job seekers. Now, that said, there are still a lot of jobs out there. Mm-hmm. So, for example, on Indeed, looking at the latest figures we have, job postings on the website are around 69% above pre-pandemic levels. Mm-hmm. They're down by around 30% from their peak, but there are still an incredible number of job opportunities available across the country. So if you are a job seeker looking for that next opportunity, those opportunities are still out there. What we're seeing is that the job vacancy rate is still around twice what was considered normal before the pandemic began. Mm-hmm. So there still is it can still be quite challenging for a lot of businesses to find staff as well. So skill shortages are still quite prevalent across the nation. So while the higher unemployment rate, not desirable from a job seeker perspective, there still are those opportunities. And I still think it's a bit of a job seeker favourable market at the moment.
Yeah, I think I would certainly agree. From what we see on the ground, it's very much still candidate short market, still hard to find good people, slight easing. And I think the thing that I would mention that does come up is that some hurrying can be around sentiment. And when you see the latest news articles, headlines that come up, for instance, the UK recession or whatever might be happening in the US, and there's quite a bit of noise around that, how open or how much of an impact do you think that has here in Australia when there is these other big global things happening? How much do you think that it impacts Australia? Do you think we're relatively isolated, or what impact do you say it have?
Well, the Australian economy is a relatively small economy, which is obviously influenced by global factors. We're not immune to that, but we can often prove to be quite resilient. The Australian job market at the moment looks very different from, say, the UK. As I noted before, Indeed job postings for Australia are up 69% compared to pre-pandemic levels. In the UK, they're actually below pre-pandemic levels. So there's been a big gap there in terms of job creation throughout the recovery. And we continue to perform at a much higher level in terms of just job volumes. So we do appear to be holding up a lot better than some of the other major markets that Indeed operates in. And that suggests that the economy and the labour market is probably going to prove to be a little bit more resilient here. We're seeing in some other countries, such as the UK, where obviously, recessionary risks are very real. I don't think that's a conversation we're really having in Australia, because it is quite challenging for a lot of people out there. There isn't that sense that we're dealing with a recession.
And thinking about the UK side of things in their news, we've got record levels of migration. Do you think we might find ourselves with a more of an influx than we do already with migrants moving to Australia for work?
Well, it's going to be really interesting. Obviously, we've had very strong population growth over the past year. Australia's population aged 15 and over increased by 3%, which is the highest, basically, I think, since World War II. So it's quite unusual. My sense is that migration levels or migration flows are likely to come off from where they currently are, in large part because we're probably done catching up from the pandemic, where borders were closed and no one could enter the country. Whether it sort of settles at a rate that is still above normal, I think that's going to be the key question. Also important is going to be the conversation we have around migration. So I get the sense that it's going to be quite a hot political issue leading to the next federal election, because there is concerns around cost of living, housing prices, and all those sort of things, and migration sort of fits in there as well. So there's going to be a lot of conversation around whether migration is too high or not, and certainly that could trigger a rethink in how the federal government approaches that.
Great. And just lastly, any further predictions for what we can expect for this year?
Well, I think we obviously have a very challenging economic environment. Economic growth is likely to be relatively weak, but the labour market still continues to do okay. I tend to agree with the Reserve Bank of Australia and Federal Treasury in the sense that I think the unemployment rate will continue to rise, but I'm not anticipating a sharp increase at the moment. I think the forward-looking measures that we look at, like job vacancies or the jobs that we're seeing on Indeed, remain really healthy. And that's going to support employment going forward. So I'm somewhat optimistic about our prospects for the year.
Great. Fantastic. Appreciate your time. Of course, we've got some details there around, obviously, your contact details. And I believe that's the website for Indeed as well. So please do look to visit that. A lot of jobs there to have a look at. And as we continue to see a tight labour market. So thanks very much, Callam. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben and Callam. Definitely interesting times, and I'm keen to see how 2024 shapes up, particularly as we did dip into recession in December in the UK. So it will be interesting to see how this year pans out. But now it's time to take a look at the social media poll results. So this is the first one for the year, actually. So given the current market, do you think now is a good time to look for a new job? I'm really interested to see these results next week. If you're keen to get involved, make sure that you comment. That's it for today, and we'll see you again next week, 12:30 Friday.